He's a writer. I think he's written a ton of books. And that little cycle, that little truism, is the cycles of history. And that cycle takes about 80 years to go around. Now I'm going to say it again. This is the cycle of history in case you didn't get it the first time. This is an 80-year cycle. Hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men. Weak men create hard times. Now, if you haven't got the book yet, page 401, I've got this cycle of history. I'll break it down for you here. Every 80 years, this is something to write down, every 80 years, humanity forgets everything it knows. Because what happens is, the people who lived through World War II, the people who lived through the communist Russia, the 20 million people killed in communist Russia, they're not around anymore. The people who fought on D-Day, they're not around anymore. The guys who had to bust into the death camps and bail out all those skeleton people that were emaciated from not eating, they're not around anymore. And what happens in our society is every 80 years, we forget everything. So we repeat history because we forgot. We forgot how bad communism was. We forgot how bad World War II was. We forgot how bad it really was, because hard times create strong men create good times create weak men create hard times. Now, for those of you who can't see, 1940 was the last time we had hard times create strong men. If you want to know where you're at in history, just take your current year and subtract 80 years. It's 2019. Subtract 80 from that. What year is that? 1939. If history repeats itself, are we going to see some bad shit pretty soon? Yes or yes? Yeah. Why? Because we forgot. History is the same story over and over again with different costumes. That's something to write down too, gents. History is the same story over and over again with different costumes. So 1940, every part of the poem is 20 years. So the first generation, hard times create strong men. This is the World War II generation. This is the greatest generation. When they were 10 years old, they were in the Great Depression. When they were 20, they were in a war. After the war, the men came home, one arm, one leg, built a house with his bare hands, married his high school sweetheart, sired 4 children, worked at a factory for 40 years, paid for everything. Did he complain that he didn't like his work? No. When he was 10, he was in the Great Depression. He was hungry. We got all these soy boys and the millennials. I'm a millennial now. I beat on millennials. But we complain, oh, this isn't that fun. It's not engaging enough. It's not something I want. It's not my dream. Nobody cares about your dreams. Guys, in history, nobody asked the men if they were happy. 0 times they asked the men. 1940, hard times create strong men. 20 years later, we're in the boom time, 1960. America was the superpower of the world. Key is was. Write that down. America was the superpower in 1960. That was the golden age. 1960 is the Mad Men era. That's where everybody had purchasing power. Everybody had money. A man could go get a job at a factory, not be so smart, marry a woman, have a house and a cottage and a car or 2 cars. They could have a white picket fence. They could have a dog. They could have 2, 3, 4 children. Guys, are those days gone? 1960, so strong men create good times. We go to 1980, this is the peak. Good times create weak men. This is where Wall Street comes out, starts doing bullshit with our money. We're off the gold standard. Things start declining. 2000, weak men create hard times. You got bullshit like George Bush just having wars for no reason. You got guys like Barack Obama being president in that cycle, and look where it takes us. 2020, hard times create strong men. So guys, are we going to have some problems pretty soon? If 80 years is a cycle of history, is it going to get bad soon? It's going to get bad. Here's the thing. There's an 80-year cycle of war. So if it's every 80 years, what are we going to have? A war. Now, really, war happens every 20 years. There's a big war. But the big war is every 80 years. So 4 cycles is the big war. Now, 80 years before World War II, what war was that? American Civil War. So we've had a civil war in America, guys. Could there be another one soon? The way the politics is going in this country, the left is getting violent, And the right is probably going to get violent too. It could happen. There's another cycle I want you to know about I put in the book. 250 years is the lifespan of democracy. So write that down. 250 years is the lifespan of democracy. And we have an 80-year cycle of war, which is ending in 2020, and we have a 250-year lifespan of democracy. America was born in 1776, so if you add 250 to 1776, you get 2026. Now what happens in history, Aristotle said this. He says that masculine republics give way to feminine democracies, and feminine democracies give way to tyranny. America is a republic, yes or yes? Yes. Is it giving way to feminine democracy right now? Yes. So what's going to happen next? Tyranny. So some of you guys might not like President Trump. He might be Emperor Trump. And you laugh, but there's a couple ways to do that. One is martial law. If it's a war, you don't change the president. That's one way. Another way is he could elect Don Jr. and then become the prime minister like Vladimir Putin did. Putin, as the president of Russia, was supposed to step down, but he's still there. Julius Caesar in Rome, do you remember Rome? He became emperor by doing that. Guys, could this happen? Yes or yes? Okay? I'm just giving you numbers from history. This is history.